So I'd like to move into lessons learned, and maybe we can start with that example. Was that, you've had the experience of doing the large deal with the company versus just the patent. What advice do you have for members here?
Well, the first thing that I look for, and so, having said that, I had no vacation 5 years, all those trips, I'm doing it again. I'm just closing an A round of financing on a new company to do the same thing over because it's a tremendous amount of fun. And what makes it great is the team you put together, working to solve problems that, no offense, but the big companies can't solve. When Medtronic bought Ablation Frontiers, they also bought another company. They brought us together. They convinced me to stay and run R&D for a while. With this vision, we want to stay entrepreneurial. We want to stay creative. We want you to do what you've been doing. Very quickly, I learned that wasn't going to happen, and I survived, I call it, for 20 months before I had to leave so that I could go do something creative. But to me, it's all about enjoying the ride along the way because it goes fast. You're going to work hard. You create a great team. You got to have confidence in the team members that you bring in because really, I believe that the cream of the crop goes to the startups because they get frustrated with the big companies that don't move things along, have to do decision by committee. So you can really attract some really talented people to startups. And when you empower them to do things they haven't done before in ways they haven't done it, they get excited. So the excitement level of a startup becomes very intense, and we feed upon that. And the physicians that we work with see it, sense it, become a part of it. So the biggest thing that I would say to anybody doing one is enjoy it and live it for all it's worth because it's a fun ride. It's not always reproducible, but you take advantage of it while you can. Because at some point in time, one way or another, you're going to be off doing something different.
And as you look back, is there anything that you would do differently?
We didn't build the company for an acquisition like was mentioned here. We built the company saying we want to build the best technology to treat this big new patient population. And what happens, happens. But we built a company to stand on its own two feet no matter what happened, whether we got acquired, whether we just kept going until we got profitable and we could buy out our internal VCs or whether we got acquired. So I think we did things that way real well. The biggest thing that, if I were to look back and going back in time, there's two things that I think were mentioned here. One, our IP portfolio, and most of us are already working in crowded spaces, is key. But you can always do a better job. We had multiple patent strategists, patent attorneys. We even hired litigators to come in and say, if you were the competition suing us, where would you go after us at so we can fix those problems? But, being a VC company, you can only spend so much money. I wish we could have done a little more there. And then during the negotiation with the large companies, they want to give you a certain amount of money and then make a bunch of milestone payments. And that all sounds great on paper before everything starts. The problem is with milestone payments, the minute they own you, you're no longer in control. And the best people that can get the job done to meet those milestones are no longer the guys in control. So negotiating those milestones and who's in control and how you get to be able to reach those milestones, to me, is a critical step. And if I could go back in time, that's the one thing I'd say. Yeah, we'll do the milestones because they're very achievable, but let us stay in control of making sure those milestones happen on time. Because the big companies have ways of delaying things and not funding properly or making, whatever. So from a small group of people coming from this startup, the milestone negotiation and how it gets controlled was a critical thing that I think we would do better if we go back in time.
And what are your lessons learned?
Well, first off, I think you don't try to run a company in today's market environment without a strong balance sheet and as best you can minimize your burn of cash and frivolous things. I think in the early days of Clarient, as we started it, we went from nothing to 11 million to 28 to 43 to 72 to 92 and now 120, right? And this year 160, 170. And that velocity took working capital. But we were sort of hamstrung, if you will, with a large venture investor, who was really, between the mezzanine financing facility they'd given us and the penny warrants that went with it, and the actual interest, it was about 30% interest rate as the market began tight. And so I guess my advice is, if you can raise money, raise as much as you can when you can, and keep a strong balance sheet. Even though it might be dilutive, I think that we made some, and I'll take the blame for this, poor decisions along the way, because I only got as much money as we needed at the time, and because I always felt like we could get profitable, we wouldn't need any more money. And I think the reality is, in looking back, had I had the war chest that I needed, we probably would have weathered the storm earlier, faster, and we would be a little ahead of the game where we are today in terms of some of the proprietary product launches that we had hoped to get out, which are now coming out, but they could have been out maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago. I think that's one. The other thing I think that's extremely important is, don't be chintzy on hiring quality people. If you got to pay extra to hire the right people, hire them. One of the things I was so blessed with is that I was able to recruit an amazing team that was world class, and I had venture guys who were willing to pay it, and we paid them well. We gave them plenty of options, plenty of ownership, because you're in a barroom brawl in these startups, and I'm the Scottish heritage, and to explain that is, my granddad used to say, when you go in a bar in Scotland, you're going to fight your way out. So you better go with buddies, and you don't have to worry about getting hit in the back of the head with a chair, right? And so I think the message is, when you enter this startup world, you better have an extremely cohesive leadership team that you can shut the door, humble yourself as a CEO or as an owner, and say, what is it we need to do to make sure we fight our way out of this situation together, so you never have to worry about getting hit in the back of the head with a chair. And I think it's real important that you go the extra mile as a leader to figure out, A, what culture you want to build to begin with, set the stage for that from day one, and 2, hire people that fit that culture, not people that have a great resume. Because a great resume doesn't always get it done. I think you have to hire people that have the heart and the passion to do what you want to do and go where you want to go, and believe in the vision enough that they'll swallow their pride and ego when the time comes to get tough in the fight. And that's some advice that I was blessed to come into the world with in terms of the venture world, and it's served us well at Clarient through the years. So.
And as you look back on the deal with GE Healthcare, is there anything that you would do different?
Well, I think there's a lot we would do different in terms of how we actually structured the deal for our employees. I think at the end of the day, we counted on GE's ability to retain a lot of my team on the other side. They said, we'll take care of them on the other side. And so we already had taken care of them as best we could from the Clarient side in terms of stock ownership. But I think getting more of that in writing for some key people would have been great, because now we're on the other side, and while GE's doing a good job, the numbers at GE in terms of stock and what they offer, very different than what we were offering in the venture and public world. And so I think that anticipation of what they would take care of on the other side, shame on me for not recalibrating that with the leadership at GE going in. But that's a lesson I just tell everybody. If you're thinking about it, get all that stuff in writing, get it done, and make sure your team are well taken care of. Our team, we haven't had any defections except for one guy who went to be CEO of another company, and that's going to happen in these types of deals. But the reality is, I think there's a lot of people that I wish were a little more tied up today than are. So,
Mike, from the acquirer